So welcome everyone to the next installment of our GVI Workshop Series on support and outreach. So just a little background on NNSC. For those of you who have attended these sessions in the past, you'll have heard this before, but we like to do it as we're always welcoming new folks into the fold. So NNSC, who are we? So the National Network for Safe Communities is an action research center based here in New York at John Jay College of Criminal Justice that implements proven strategic interventions that are designed to reduce violence, build trust, and transform public safety in partnership with communities around the world. So what is this workshop series specifically? So the workshop series is the GVI Workshop Series, or Group Violence Intervention Workshop Series, that's meant for new, interested, or returning partners to this work. So the national network is just that. It's a network of partner sites all around the country and world that work with us, work with NNSC and have relationships with us where we support them as they implement various strategic interventions such as GVI and a couple others that we'll touch on later. But these sessions are meant for new partners to this work who are sites that we don't have a relationship with, that are just kind of learning about the work, interested in learning about the work, or folks who are on sites that we already have relationships with, who they themselves are new to this work and want to learn a little bit more. These sessions are space to learn about and discuss violence prevention, focused deterrence, GVI, and new innovations in the field. You'll hear from experienced NNSC staff and participate in roundtable conversations with our partners and you yourself as you attend each session. The sessions are open to any and all who are interested in exploring the GVI approach to violence reduction in their community, whether it's municipal workers, support and outreach workers, law enforcement officials, researchers, scholars, anyone who is interested in learning about this work for their own site, their own city, their own town, their own jurisdiction is welcome in these sessions. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. What we're going to do now is, again, if you've attended these sessions before, a quick breakout room where we just do some introductions, say who you are, where you're from, and why you're here, why you're interested in learning about this work, what your role is in violence prevention or any sort of work that kind of touches on what we've been discussing and learning about in these sessions. And then we'll all come back to the main session to witness a couple of amazing presentations by my colleague Talib Hudson and the great Isaac Hunt. So I believe my colleague Megan is setting up the breakout rooms. So we'll go into there for a couple of minutes, say hello, come back here and start the show. All right, I believe everyone is back in the main session now. So I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Talib for his, what I'm sure will be fantastic presentation on support and outreach. The support and outreach component of GVI and a deep dive into that and everything it entails. So over to you, Talib.
Thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate that. And I told Michael before the presentation that I was a little bit nervous. So thank you for sprinkling on a little bit of good vibes about saying, oh, it's going to be great. So I appreciate that. Last month, for those of you who were either here for the previous presentation or whether you caught the video online, you saw our colleague Paul Smith talk about direct communication. And he talked about the value and how to implement different kinds of direct communication within the GVI framework. Most importantly, the calling, right, which is the direct communication with groups of people at the same time, as well as the custom notification, which is the more individualized approach for folks to have that direct communication. And he talked about ways to do that, the importance of it, how it's done. He also touched a bit on support and outreach and why that is important as well, because the communication and the outreach components are so closely aligned. So this month, we're going to take a much deeper dive, as Michael mentioned, into the support and outreach work. And the first part we're gonna talk about, I do have some slides. It's PowerPoint, but I promise I'll keep it as painless as possible. But first, I'll give you sort of the theory per se around support and outreach, the philosophy, the framework, the underpinnings, the understandings of how it's supposed to work. And then we'll go to Isaac Hunt, who is one of the OGs and heroes in the game, to talk about how this actually works in real life and the difference between kind of the theory and then the practice and the reality of how things actually work. So if I can figure out how to use Zoom 3 years after our pandemic has started, then you should be looking at a slide that says credible and meaningful support and outreach. Excellent, excellent. I'm finally learning how to do this. Maybe by 2035, I will have mastered it. Oh, haven't mastered, oh, there we go. So just to reiterate, because this point is really important, when we're talking about support and outreach, as we mentioned before, there are 3 legs of the stool for GVI. There's the strategic law enforcement, the community moral voice, and then there's support and outreach. Each leg of this stool is equally important and is very important. And I really want to make sure that I stress that point, because oftentimes, at least when I'm reading about GVI and when I hear people talk about GVI in the news or online or in different spaces, I hear GVI more often spoken about primarily as a law enforcement strategy, as if it is something primarily that police and sheriffs and prosecutors do. And then maybe there's like some other components on the side that kind of round that out. But really, in order for GVI, group violence intervention, to be done most effectively, it really does require having a really strong, not only community voice, but support and outreach component as well. Now let's break that down a little bit. When we say support and outreach, what does that even mean? Well, there's support and there's outreach. The support aspect means providing people with the things that they need to live healthier and more productive lives, whatever that may be. And yes, I'm talking about the people who would be your GVI participants, the core population. I am talking about people who may be believed to be involved in group violence, people who may believe to be involved in serious violence, people who may be believed to allegedly be shooters, right? They need support. Everyone in life needs support. And so we're going to talk more about what support specifically means, but support is just what it means, right? It's support and in providing what people need for their life. Now, outreach, it's not a misnomer. It actually means going out to reach people. And it may sound funny to try to explain it that way, but oftentimes people think that outreach might just be making a phone call in and of itself, or maybe stopping by somebody's house or expecting someone to come into an office. Now, all of those things may be aspects of outreach, but outreach really is about getting out and reaching people. And if someone says that they are doing GVI or they're interested in GVI, that requires getting out and reaching people where they are. If folks aren't getting out and reaching people, then you're not doing support and you're definitely not doing outreach. So I just really want to crystallize that terminology so that it's not just something that we just run by as a buzzword, but these, as my wife likes to say, words mean things. And so when we think about support and outreach, these words are very important. Having that support and going out and reaching people where they are to make sure that they can access and that they're provided and offered that support. Now, how are you going to do all of this? Who is the person that makes sure that this happens? That is the role of the project manager. Of the support and outreach manager. Working in close conjunction and partnership with the project manager, if it's a 3-legged stool for GVI, Sasha Cotton, our senior director of strategy, often says that the project manager is the seat. And so the seat oversees and makes sure that these 3 legs of the stool are working properly. And the support and outreach manager makes sure that that support and outreach component of the overall model and framework is working properly. So this is a person that has to have real skill at developing, maintaining, and building partnerships, someone who has to really know the ins and outs of the services that's being provided in the community, and someone who is a skilled problem solver, who knows how to work through challenges and obstacles and As folks may say in the church, when they pray and they say, God will make a way out of no way, right? The support and outreach manager has to be someone that comes with an attitude of how are we going to make a way out of no way. And to the point about relationships, those relationships definitely have to be with other people within the community, within the social service structure, perhaps even within the political and government community as well. And those relationships also have to be there with law enforcement. Now, it does not necessarily mean that the support and outreach apparatus works hand in hand with law enforcement. In some implementations, there's different levels of partnership. In some implementations, there is a strong tie and a connection between law enforcement and support and outreach. For example, Pastor Garland Scott, who is I think one of the most phenomenal people doing this work, literally works inside the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office and has an outreach and support office. And at the same time, he also has a separate church entity and partnerships with a range of different churches within the area and partnerships with different organizations. Other cities may say, we want to keep our support and outreach separate. Maybe they're working with Cure Violence or Advance Peace or other partners that say, we want to maintain a healthy distance from our law enforcement partners to make sure that we're maintaining some kind of credibility in the community and for whatever other reason that there may be. So those relationships may or may not be directly with law enforcement. That really depends on the implementation in that particular city. The core philosophy around support and outreach is extremely important. If you get nothing else from anything I say, please make sure that you focus right here on these words right in front of you. The goal, the purpose, the whole wang dang doodle of around GVI is we want people to be safe, we want them to be alive, we want them to be free. That is the core philosophy undergirding GVI, and that is the core philosophy undergirding specifically support and outreach. What that means is people may not necessarily turn their lives around tomorrow. Someone may not walk into a jobs program and all of a sudden be working 40 hours a week and paying taxes and doing all sorts of wonderful things. That would be nice, but that's not likely. The goal is to have people be safe, be alive, and be free. And specifically when I mean free, I do mean not incarcerated, not in prison, right? So we want to make sure that whatever needs to happen to make sure that people aren't engaging in behavior that is going to have them end up behind bars. That's an important part of the support and outreach work. Now, to that point, there may be some folks who may be, as I said, engaged in criminal behavior, or they may have been in the past and are still trying to figure out where they want to be and where they want to move in life. That's irrelevant to the support that is being offered. The support is unconditional, and that's a really, really key aspect of this. If the support is conditional, it's like someone having conditional love. So, well, then you don't really love me. And if you don't really love me, then how can I trust you? And if I can't trust you, then why should I believe anything that you have to say? And so we want to make sure that that support is unconditional, that unconditional support breeds trust, that unconditional support builds relationships, so that when you're putting together these other aspects of the model, the community moral voice and strategic law enforcement, those pieces are now enhanced because there is buy-in. And so I've heard people say carrot and stick. I've seen things, online and in articles and in news, and then people say GVI is carrot and stick. GVI is not carrot and stick. It's carrot, 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 carrot. Okay. Now, if you need a stick, fine. But it is not if you don't take these services, then there will be a stick. No, it is we will offer you unconditional support. Period. That's it. There are some implementation sites, like even in Miami-Dade, where they look to say, how can we even support you even if you do end up incarcerated, right? Because again, that love is unconditional, because everyone who goes to prison, most people, the vast majority are coming home at some point. And so you want to make sure that even if someone is going to prison, that they are now in a better position to be able to come home and be whole and not engage in the behavior that got them in prison in the first place. So to that point, we really stress having non-traditional services as a part of support and outreach. Traditional services can be a part of it and should be a part of it. And what do I mean by traditional services? I mean workforce development programs, getting people signed up for Medicaid and SNAP, EBT, food stamps, what have you, rental assistance, getting a GED or other educational programming. Those things are good, and those should be part of an overall support and outreach structure. However, most social service organizations get paid to service very specific clientele who they believe will be successful under a very specific time frame. So for example, a workforce development program wants someone to come in and get a job within 6 months, right? Or they want someone to get a job within 180 days, or something along those lines, right? So that they can show that we are helping people get jobs. The GED program wants to say, hey, we have helped X amount of people pass the GED, right? But now the folks that are the most likely to shoot or be shot are often not in a position where that's the main thing that they're focused on right now. Folks who are worried about survival, their literal day-to-day survival, can really care less about a GED program, right? Or a jobs program. They're trying to not get shot, right? So how can you support them to not get shot? And if you can support them in not getting shot, and that relationship is built and that trust is built, then you can come in with the traditional services. But really it's the focus on what are the services and support that are going to meet people where they are right now in order to keep them, again, safe, alive, and free. And a core part of this philosophy is believing that every participant is a human being worthy of love, respect, and redemption. And I really want to emphasize this because I have, by way of background, I didn't give some of my background, but I used to be a field advisor for GVI. I'm now the director of research and innovation. I've done a focused deterrence implementation when I worked with the Manhattan DA's office years ago. I started off in this work in doing community-based violence prevention work with street corner resources. And then last year, I completed my doctoral program in public urban policy with a focus on community-based violence prevention. And across all of that experience, I have often heard people talk about those who are engaged in violence or at the highest risk of being either less than human or not worthy, or somehow, why should we spend money on this person? They've made their decision, they can do what they want to do. Well, the question is, do you want to stop violence or do you not want to stop violence? Because research shows that not only is this the right and smart thing to do, but fundamentally, if someone wants to address violence in their community, you have to offer support and outreach to people who are most at risk and the most engaged in the violence. And that is across multiple different kinds of implementation strategies, whether it's GVI, advanced peace, cure violence, ROCA, whatever, what have you. This is a constant that we are seeing across whatever model, whatever spin you want to put on it. These are the facts. So I really want to make sure that these points are drilled down. But now let's move on. How do you do all this? Because I know this seems really daunting. Like, wait a second, how am I going to pull all this off? We're talking about working with people who are at the highest risk. You're talking about offering these services that are non-traditional. Well, partnerships. This whole GVI thing rests on relationships and partnerships, right? So you want to be able to identify who are the potential partners in your area, bring them into the strategy, right? And like as my colleague Paul Smith says, sometimes you have to know who to invite to the table, and sometimes you have to know who to disinvite from the table, right? Some people are not really there with a heart for service, and that just is what it is. Some people are there because they need to fill their contract, or they have to make their numbers to get a certain number of pay stubs, or GED graduates, or people enrolled in their program, whatever, what have you. Right? Those may not be the people that you need in terms of your partnership, but you try to find the folks who are true, and as the kids might say, about that life, and you build that partnership with them, right? You help construct this with them, and you want to have a lead partner who can do that intake management, someone who can kind of field folks coming in and making sure that folks are getting to where they need to go, right? So what we don't want is a buffet of different support options, and you tell people, go make a choice of whichever service you want. Let me tell you something. I love cookies. I'm a fan of Oreos. I go into the supermarket and I see 10 different flavors of Oreos. And it's very annoying. It's too many options, okay? Give me the regular, give me the golden, maybe the double stuff, right? And help me get there, right? And so we're talking about folks who are living with day-to-day survival, right? We got to make it easy for them. It's got to be an alley-oop. We got to put it where they can get it. And so having a lead partner who can help position people and help them get to where they need to go is extremely important in that partnership. Now, who might some of these partners be? Well, first, I would say, don't overlook your city agencies. When we talk about GVI and focus deterrence, we talk about pulling levers. Oftentimes, I've seen sites try to bend over backwards or find ways to get their local government apparatus to institute sanctions or enforcement on people or groups, but yet don't put that same energy into how do we pull levers to support people, to make sure, hey, if someone does need a renewal on their EBT card because their benefits are about to run out at the end of the month and their kid is hungry, how can we fix that? How do we cut through the red tape to make sure that happens? Just like you would cut through the red tape to prioritize folks who we believe to be the most active shooters for enforcement, let's cut through the red tape and prioritize people who can get support for city agencies and city services that already exist. Other folks might be local community activists and leaders, community-based organizations doing that grassroots on the ground work who may have that real frontline knowledge and relationships. You may want to work with other established models, right? Oftentimes I've heard people say, oh, we want to do GVI. We don't want cure violence. We want cure violence. We don't want GVI. We want neither. We're doing advanced peace. Aha, we will do ROCA, right? Listen, these are false choices, right? A city, if you already have a cure violence implementation and you want to do GVI, great. If you're doing GVI and you want to bring in advanced peace, great. The point is about partnerships and playing well with each other for the sake, again, of keeping people safe, alive, and free, right? So that relationship and that philosophy, all those things are really important. Don't forget about faith-based individuals and organizations. And it's not just churches, right? It could be a range of different faith-based organizations and individuals, social service organizations, including both big box, traditional organizations like your United Way, your Goodwill, your whatever the local foundation is in your area, but also the smaller, again, niche, maybe grassroots or on the ground service providers that may not have the same level of resources and services that some of the bigger organizations may have, but sometimes maybe may be more nimble or may have more street level knowledge, right? Or may provide a specialty a component that some of the big boxes don't offer. So again, make sure that we're partnering together, right? And we're playing well together because again, we're trying to help folks be safe, alive, and free, right? And so that's the goal is to stop the shooting and have folks be safe, alive, and free. So what could this look like? Now, this is not a hard and fast structure right here, what I'm putting before you. This is not to say this is exactly how implementation has to look in your city, in your jurisdiction, but it's a sample of what something could look like. At the top, you have coordination, that support and outreach manager, as I mentioned, to make sure that everything is flowing. Next is that front line, that initiation, whether that's your street outreach person, right? It could be, you could have a street outreach team that's specifically part of GVI. You could be utilizing or partnering with street outreach from a cure violence organization or advanced peace or some other partner. You could also have a violence interrupter because oftentimes those are actually not the same role, right? Someone who's jumping in front of a gun and someone who's doing outreach could be very different people. They could be the same, but they probably should be different. Similar, case manager. Please don't make this all the same person. That's like 3 different jobs in one person. And oftentimes people do this because resources are what they are. But these really should be different roles. But so these are the people who are like really making your first point of direct contact with those who are at the highest risk of shooting or being shot and either trying to do immediate interruption into violence, bringing them into the broader program. Some of these people may be doing follow-up, maybe doing custom notifications, maybe doing outreach to group members. And then the case manager can look at connecting people with traditional services and city agencies. And that's that third tier, that's that stabilization, right? And that outreach can be supported with community-based organizations and faith-based organizations. And again, that first part, that initiation part is really important. And then you can start to move on to stabilization and then the restoration, right? We're talking about education and employment. oftentimes I see folks who want to move straight down to employment and education. It's like, oh, we got this person and we think he's in a gang and I want to get him into this job program. It's like you're jumping down at least 2 to 3 different levels, right? Like, where is that person right now today, right? Like, are they safe? Are they, are they free? Are they hungry? What do they need right now? How do we even, before we even get down to the job or the education, before you even get to some of these other pieces, where are they at right now? And so that's just a way that you can look at this: coordination, initiation, stabilization, and then on to restoration. Now, when it comes to the law enforcement aspect of folks deterrence in GVI, we say that it needs to be swift, certain, and fair, right? People need to know that the consequences are going to happen quickly, right? And so that there's that direct connection between action, results, that's going to be certain that is going to happen. And in terms of the law enforcement aspect, you want it to be fair, right? To make sure that, it's not egregious, right? And that people don't feel like they're being treated unfairly. But with support and outreach, again, you want it to be swift, you want it to be certain, right? You want people to know that they can depend on what's coming and it's going to come fast, and it has to be sufficient. It has to meet the needs of the folks who are at the highest risk. Because if you can't meet the needs, then why should they even listen to you? If you can't meet the needs, why should they trust you, right? But we can say, well, they should trust us because they should trust us, or they should listen because they should listen, or they should put the gun down because they should put the gun down. Yes, and they won't unless there is an alternative, right? And so this is part of what being swift, certain, and sufficient is about. It's providing that alternative. It's making sure that if you say, for example, there may be someone in a higher risk area, maybe you have done a custom notification, maybe they came to a call-in and they have children and they're very young children who need diapers. Can you provide diapers for that person when they need diapers tomorrow? If they call you and say, hey, I'm hungry, my kid is hungry, my lights got cut off. Can you fix that situation within 24 to 48 hours? Can you prioritize folks? So if they say, hey, I need a driver's license, I need ID, or I need something from a city agency, are they gonna go and wait in the back of the line like everybody else? Or are you gonna prioritize them? You prioritize them for enforcement, so prioritize them for support and outreach. It makes a big difference. And the support has to be, again, reliable, dependable, and consistent, because that's what builds trust. And when people trust you, then that builds relationship. And that relationship, it can be an alternative to what they're gonna find in the street. And again, this is something you gotta meet people where they are. Some folks may be, 2 a.m. They feel in some type of way, right? People are living in trauma, right? People are living in situations. We talked about this in previous sessions. And so there may be a situation, violence that may be about to occur, and it's 2 a.m. and the person is calling the support and outreach hotline. There should be a support and outreach hotline. I should have put that on the slide, but there should be a 24-hour number that's available for people to call to get support if they need support, even if it's 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. Why? Because you don't want them shooting someone at 4 a.m., right? And again, safe, alive, free. We've got to be able to provide the needs. If you think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the basic things that people need to survive. And this is probably what we call the big, small stuff, right? This goes outside just traditional services. You have to be able to outperform the street. People are drawn to street life because it may be giving them a sense of validation as a person, and maybe putting food on their table through the drug gang. It may be providing them with protection, right, through guns. And so if you cannot provide them with validation, protection, food, shelter, something, and they can get it from the street, why wouldn't they, right? Again, not justifying violence, not excusing it, not saying it's okay. We know it's not okay. That's why we're all here. But we have to make sure that we're providing that alternative. We have to outperform the street and be able to provide those big, small things. Sometimes that traditional social services may not pay for. They may say, we don't have the budget for that. We don't have money to cover someone's cost to get their ID. Or, geez, someone is behind on their rent this month and they're about to get kicked out. Oh, we don't have money to pay for someone's rent. Oh, we don't have money to pay for this. These are the kinds of things where if you can come through for someone in a bind, in a clutch, right, then you can help build relationships. And guess what? They may not shoot someone, right, because that pressure now has been assuaged. And again, that's the point of this, keeping people safe, alive, and free. And so you've got to really be able to be in a position to address the things that people need when and where they need them. So for example, let's say that a shooting happens, right? We want to manage the immediate crisis. That could be, unfortunately, in the case of a death, helping to organize funeral services. Many of you I know work with folks who have experienced family members transitioning due to gun violence, and we know that there's a lot of grief. There's a lot of things to take care of. There's so many questions and there's paperwork, right? You can help people address that. That can help assuage some of that pain and that grief that sometimes leads to retaliation. Let's say that someone is shot and they've survived, you know, thank God that but now there's like, what does that look like when they come home? What is going to be their home care, right? What medical needs need to be, what therapy do they need to make sure that when they come out of the hospital, because maybe they don't have insurance and not going to be in the hospital, but for so long, what is it going to look like for them to come out? Who's going to make sure that they're taken care of? And if you can be that person, again, you're building that relationship and keeping people safe, alive, and free. Outreach to friends and family of both the victim and the alleged shooter, right? Making sure that, hey, listen, let's make sure everyone's cool. This is where your balance interrupters and maybe street outreach workers can come into play, right? Just talking to people, sometimes even just having people be heard can help assuage some of the anger and the grief and the rage. And that's part of what goes into procedural justice and legitimacy, is people feeling that they've been heard. Offering someone a bed for the night. Someone says, listen, like the ops are after me, right? And I need some place to lay low. If you can offer them a bed for that night, even if it's just for 12 hours, you may have just saved someone's life. Similarly, running interference if there's shootings at the hospital, maybe you have a hospital-based violence intervention implementation there, and making sure that, hey, people aren't trying to shoot each other at the hospital and trauma wards, and that people can, you know, reduce any kind of anger or beef or trauma at that site. And then there's also the communities and police responding to victims of violence, what we call CPRVV, in which in the aftermath of a shooting, some of the community moral voice members, might be support and outreach members, and members of law enforcement collectively as a group go and visit the home of the person who has been shot, just to provide care, just to provide love, just to provide support, because again, that can reduce some of those retaliatory feelings, can assuage some of that pain, can assuage some of that grief, and help maybe stop the next shooting from happening. Now, there might be different levels of engagement that you want to look at. Primarily, GVI is built to look at what's going on with the individual and perhaps their family. I mean, if you have someone who is believed to be in the most serious violence, and as I said, if they have young children, and if they say, again, I need diapers, I need baby formula, my kid is sick, if you can provide for that, that can make a world of difference. Similarly, they may have a sick parent or a grandparent. If you can help with that, that might provide a world of difference. You know, maybe if someone sees that the support that they're getting from you is good, right? It's reliable, it's swift, certain, and sufficient. They may pull in some of their friends, some of their associates, some of the other people that you've been trying to reach. And then, of course, there are these broader levels of engagement around neighborhood and city and jurisdiction, which is typically outside the immediate scope of GVI, but just some things to think about and keep in mind when you're thinking about the scope of your engagement and including the scope of your partners, right? Because maybe you might have a grassroots activist group that might want to do some broader engagement around gun violence prevention in the neighborhood or in the city, which might still be helpful because it's still helping you with your messaging and it's still helping provide awareness of the support and the outreach that you're providing, while your support and outreach manager and your case managers and your street outreach workers are focusing on specific individuals and specific families. So just ways to think about how you might want to have that be structured. So when you do that messaging, right, whether it's you or whether it's other folks that are on your team, right, you want to explain what's available. Explain it like they too, right? Be very specific. Don't just assume people know what you're talking about. If you say, don't just say you have a job if you have no job. Don't promise someone something that you cannot provide. Explain how people can access the support. Are they calling a phone number? Are they going on a website? Are they going to see John or Data? How do they get it? Again, make no assumptions. Don't just hand someone a flyer and say, have a good day. I'll see you when I see you, right? Explain the partnership is designed to prioritize that person. And that must be true. Again, if we can pull levers for enforcement, we can pull levers for support and outreach. And trust and believe if you helping someone in a time of need helps them from either stopping from shooting someone or being shot, is going to be worth it. And then explore, right, how to help that person that we're talking about, that impact player, and their family, right? So explain, 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 and explore. All right. Now, rounding this out, you might want to say, how do I make this sustainable? How do I keep this going? The great news is that in 2023, there are a range of funding opportunities now that did not exist 5 years ago, 4 years ago, 3, 2, or even last year. There are new funding opportunities coming through from the Department of Justice. There, even right now, there is a CVIPI, community-based violence prevention and prevention grant opportunity that is available right now on the Department of Justice website, Office of Justice Programs. Please take a look at that. Foundations these days are now looking at how they can provide support to community-based violence prevention. You know, there's folks like Joyce, Arnold, Schusterman, and so many others that I've never even heard of. Community foundations in the private sector, right? Some cities may not have as a robust community foundation or philanthropic sector, but they may have a private sector who cares about the rate of shootings and homicides because it goes to, you know, property values and tax base and all sorts of things on the economic end. And so it really might be worth their while, right? For a smaller investment up front, they're going to save and have a greater return on investment in the long run if they can help provide some investment into your support and outreach strategy. And again, relationships, relationships, relationships. As we saw in our very first session, when we saw the documentary about what happened in Boston and where this work even started, the miracle, as the folks said in the documentary, wasn't that the violence went down. The miracle was that the adults came together for the sake of the young people in the community. And then that Boston miracle ended when the relationships fell apart. So relationships are super important to support and outreach. And listen, you know, people say that some people gang bang in the nonprofit sector. If you've got folks who are highest risk of shooting or being shot, and their main concern is being safe, alive, and free, and they see this agency beefing with this agency, then again, why should they listen to you? Why would you listen to someone who look like they're not getting along with their partners and they promise them they can help you? It wouldn't even work. It wouldn't even make sense to you, right? So making sure that those relationships are strong, managing that narrative, right? So that folks are telling the same story, that you're having that same communication and telling those stories of success. And success might be that somebody got a job. Success might be somebody got fired. But as long as they didn't shoot someone, that's still a success. If they did not shot, that is a success, right? If someone keeps, I was talking to my colleague, Sasha Cotton today, listen, if someone gets a job and loses it in the 90 days, then gets another job and loses it in the 90 days, and gets another job and loses it within 90 days, but are they safe? Are they alive? And are they free? Well, then that's the win, right? That is the win. And that allows us to keep working with people and keep building, right? So that eventually you do help to get people stabilized and restored, but you can't stabilize someone once they're dead, right? Or you can't stabilize someone if they're in prison doing 25 to life, right? So we want to look at the small wins of that safe, which is really a big one, but safe, alive, and free, and not be too much as concerned as to whether or not did someone complete or not complete this program? Did they pass this drug test or not? Those things are important, but safe, alive, and free is really what we're going for. And then sometimes there will be setbacks, right? We know in this work, there are going to be setbacks. We know in this work, again, there are going to be people who do fail the drug test, people who do get caught with the gun, people who do say, maybe I want to go back to the street life, right? But again, if that support is unconditional and that love is unconditional, then it's relentless. And it's that relentless engagement and that relentless going after people that really makes a difference. Maybe not in one day, but over time. Seeds planted today will bear fruit if they're healthy seeds and if that fertile is so if that soil is fertile. And so that is what I wanted to talk about in terms of the theory and the philosophy and the underpinnings behind support and outreach. And you might be saying, I don't believe all that. That's not true. Well, guess what? I have one of the best people coming up right now to tell you how they have been doing such amazing work and making things, you're talking about making a way out of no way. This brother coming up right now can tell you how to just make amazing miracles. And Isaac, I don't know if you're going to talk about the story about the gas station when people showed up and you know that story and yeah. So I don't want to take your thunder, but that's one of my favorite stories. But coming to the stage now, we have someone who has been doing this work for several years out of South Bend, Indiana, has been a support and outreach manager and also project manager, and knows the ins and outs of the work. You have literally seen him on the cover of some of our materials. And so we're just very thankful and fortunate to have with us the great Isaac Hunt.
Thank you, Talib. I'm gonna pay you later. So it's good to see all these smiling faces and knowing that the people in the room are people that have the intention on helping other people to be better and want to work hard and collaborate and learn more about how to save our young brown and black men and women in our community from gun violence, which is the #1 cause of death for young men that's ranging from age to 18 to 25, and it might move down to 14 where these things are going. A little bit about me. I've been involved in GVI for going on 11 years now. I started off before GVI. I have been working. I started a charter school. I was a general manager. I even served time in prison. 10 years in prison, right? I came home and somebody helped me, right? They had some tools and they built. And guess what? They walked me through the process. They didn't direct me to go anywhere. They took me. And they took the tools out of their building, they put it in mine, and they taught me morality, they taught me brotherly love, and they taught me friendship, and they taught me never cease to stand up for what's right. Right? So through this GVI strategy, I started off as I was the case manager, I was the outreach worker, I was everything, right? Project manager, the whole 9 yards, developing and implementing the strategy from the social service end. And Talib talked about it a little bit, where he talked about I call it social service gangbanging. I didn't realize how many people in social services, did I freeze up?
We can hear you, good.
You can hear me? Okay, I thought I froze up. Okay, I didn't realize how this end of social services is such a, this is my client, right? They walk into Goodwill and it's like, this is my client. We go get him a job, a resume, and a cover letter. And then we send them to the Homeless Center and they say, this is my client, we go get, but at the end of the day, if we work collaborative together, we can accomplish more because each one of us are trying to accomplish the same thing. We're all trying to get to the same mission, right? And the mission is to help the individual, right? The second mission is to tell the story. How can you tell the story from beginning to end if you don't have a relationship with your offsite partners that will help you tell the story? You cannot get a grant of funding if you cannot tell the story. So it benefits everybody to work together so we all can tell the story. And that's the first thing I realized. So then I began to look at, I'm gonna share some slides with you guys. I begin to look at how do we build this around the individuals and their needs. One thing I realized from the beginning is the fact that social service is reactive, and it needed a component of something that was going to be proactive. And that's when I went to Detroit and talked about brothers Quincy and all them down in Detroit, Cheryl Jones, about what a good outreach team is, right? But I realized first I had to have my social service in together before I could start an outreach team. Do not start an outreach team and your social service end is not together. Because as Mr. Talib talked about, he said, you cannot promise what you do not have, all right? So what is our outreach team? Our outreach team is a collective group of individuals that's coming together to work on a mission to reduce violence, build community relationship between the police and the community, right? If that's the case, then you cannot hire an outreach worker or a case manager that don't want to talk to the police. I'm sorry, right? I didn't like the police either for a minute. But guess what? Some of my friends are police officers now because of doing this work. When the last time you invited a police officer to a birthday party? They human too. They just got a different job than we do. It took me to come get this gray hair to learn this stuff, right? But we want our kids to learn it before this, okay? What's your objective? To provide a service and reduce violence, right? What's your shared goal? Stop conflicts. That's that proactive approach. How do we stop conflicts? How do we intervene? How do we be proactive? And then how do we do referrals with other organizations where we're not just telling the individual go, but we have one point of contact with all of our agencies, that we walk an individual through the process. We help them whether they need a driver's license, child support, or whatever, okay? And it's not just about helping that one individual. It's about helping maybe his boy, maybe his girl, maybe his sister, maybe his mother. Maybe he don't want the service. But if you help them, you get credibility with him. Right? And it's about following through. You cannot say that you're going to do something and don't show up. Now you just like everybody else. We got a program. That's why we don't call GVI a program, because it's not. Programs start and end. And how many times have programs started in your community, lasted for 10 years, and the person that was carrying the mantle died, moved on, and the program died with it? When Mr. Hunt leaves, this program should still live on. When Mr. Winston leaves, this program should still low. If Goodwill decide they don't want to be the lead social service provider, guess what? It should still live on. This is the bloodline of our community, and this is why we're doing it for so many years, because we know that this is not a quick fix. And we in this for the long haul, and we see young men and young women that we have saved, okay? What law enforcement shares with outreach? One of the things I like to tell everybody, law enforcement shares everything with us. Now, what do we share with law enforcement? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, I may get a phone call, and I may call them, and I might say, you might want to be around Huey and Johnson Street about 5 in the afternoon. But I ain't saying go to 1658 Huey Street because little Johnny is sitting over there, right? But they tell us everything. What's the hotspots? What's the areas? Where should we be at? What's the person that we need to talk to? Referrals and custom notification. How can we do this if we don't have a relationship? You can't do custom notifications with an individual that you don't want to talk to, because it's not genuine. And when you get in front of the individual, they see the ungenuineness of it. And why would they buy into something that you don't even believe in? So it has to be a genuine approach. High risk areas. They let us know about high risk areas, situations, and individuals in order to reduce violence. Your outreach team should already know who the gangs is. If your outreach team doesn't know the gangs or groups in your area and the area that they're living in, they're not doing outreach. The car should be the office. The corner should be the conference room. If they sitting in the office all day, you need new employees or maybe a new manager. They should be in the streets. They should be at the community centers. They should be at the churches. They should be at the schools. They should be at the local parks. They should be wherever these young people are, they're hanging out to build relationships, okay? One of the things I do want to hit on this too as well, your people that you hire have to be credible messengers. People that has credibility within the community that may have been some that we have reinvented before. They might be football coaches. They could be basketball coaches, right? It could be a local pastor that's doing outreach on his own, right? But guess what? If you're hiring these individuals as outreach workers, they're experts in the field, and you have to pay them as experts. I'm emphasizing that again. They're experts in the field, and they need to be paid as experts. Because I cannot get one of these college students at Notre Dame to come down here and be an outreach worker and go over here to our community center because they don't have the relationships, right? My CEO love her, but I can't get her to go down to this community center when there's violence going on, and they're going to listen to her. But they will listen to Michael Winston. They will listen to Isaac Hunt. They will listen to a David Taylor because they know us, right? They're not coming to Goodwill because the G is lit up. They come to Goodwill because the outreach team is lit up, right? We feed them, we're doing everything. We got relationships with them. So we're bringing them in as referrals, okay? So we in the high risk areas, we are adapted to the situations. Information with immediate safety implications, we deal with that immediately within 24 hours. And we're out in the streets, whatever we have to do to interrupt violence, whether we got 3 on one side of the town, 2 on the other side of town, we communicate with each other as the outreach team, but we're making sure that we find out who this individual is and how can we interrupt the violence. The specific name is those in the interview, details of ongoing interviews, we do not give them. They give it to us. They'll give us the name, the mother's name, the significant other's name, the address where they live at, their last known telephone number, who they associated with, and then we go and we do our canvases from that point. A lot of police department, it took a lot of work to get to this point, to get our police department to this point, to be as transparent as they are. And it's because of our credibility and our long standing of the work that we've done, that they believe in us enough to share, to interrupt violence, because they've seen that we saved lives. What our shares with law enforcement, as I said, pretty much not too much. It might be an individual say, oh, this person is in the program, we're assisting them, leave them on, take them off the list. He don't need a Detroit South Bend style customer. He doesn't need this, he doesn't need that. We're working with him, we have him, and guess what? They leave alone, unless he go and violate and do something else. Encourage community members to report tips. It's not just the police responsibility to say that, hey, it's shooting in my neighborhood. Until the community gets involved, gun violence will not cease. We may not be able to eliminate gun violence, but we can reduce gun violence. When the community decides, like we got over on one of our streets in the city, it's taking them back their neighborhood. They're knocking on the neighbor's door. They call the police and say, we got a drug house over here. And guess what? Since they did it, we ain't had no shootings over there. So guess what we do? We're partnering with them. They do the outreach team is what they do, what they call a pop out. They bringing hot dogs, potato chips, and water and stuff, and they go be out there in the neighborhood, and they just go engage with the community to let them know we stand with you in reducing violence in your neighborhood, and we're letting you know that it's a focus on this neighborhood, right? We may see trees that's over light poles or curves that need to be fixed. That's the triggers that we show the community, hey, we support you. Let's cut these trees back. Let's get the park fixed up, right? Let's engage with the community. Let's help the community. Okay. Of course, how we decide what to share, it depends on circumstances and situations, right? It may be an individual that may want to go share themselves. I may take him to them because he wants to share, but I'm not going to share for him because I got to maintain the trust and credibility. It is necessary to uphold the safety of the community or staff on either team. Our number one priority is to come home. Just like police officers. When you at a scene, is one of the most dangerous things you could be at, or a visual, right? Who knows what's going to happen at a scene where there might be a drive-by at the scene, right? How do you station your staff at a shooting scene to make sure that you help them, the victim's family and stuff like that? Also listen at the same time to say who's going to be the next person to retaliate so we can intervene. So it's real strategic, and it takes a lot of planning. Protocols for working together. How do we make referrals? It should be one referral process. It should be one contact number. Michael Winston, who is the director of the Save Outreach team here in South Bend, is the main number that everybody calls. People go through me because I used to be the director. I send them directly into Michael. So there's no confusion about what my role is and what Michael's role is. And then he takes it from there and then drops the information down to the staff, or he sends a referral to another part of the organization to make sure the person gets the services that they need. We deal with the probation parole officers to assist to make sure they have everything they need. Outreach team members' names and case reports. We don't know, none of our outreach members' names will be in any police reports. If anybody goes to court for a client, it will be myself or Michael as a project manager or the director of the SAVE team, where we're trying to get the individual out of jail, which we have done because of our partnerships. We're engaged in high schools. We have call-ins, do community peace walks and conversations, what they call pop-outs. People are not coming to Goodwill for services. So guess what we do? We go to them. We got a thing called Goodwill on the Go. We bring all our social service partners. We have hot dogs. We out there doing the cha-cha. We doing everything out there in the park. we're providing services, and they right in their backyard where they can come out their door and get the services that they normally would not. Now we're building community relationships overall. We're saved at GVI as a whole. Candlelight visuals, to live talk about CPRVV. One thing I want to say about CPRVV, this is probably the most important time at GVI where you get a chance to talk to an individual who was shot and be able to get a message to that individual. Maybe not just to the person that's laying in the bed, but also that mother and father that's there, that's wailing and crying, that needs services, right? Also is that most important time because that's where you can see who's the leader of the family and who's likely to retaliate next to intervene and interrupt. Street engagement is truly important. Being in the schools, knowing the kids, have a relationship with the football, basketball coaches and stuff in different schools and stuff like that because they know all of the kids, but also being in the places where the young people are at. Also looking on social media, watching their pages, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, see what they're doing, being proactive. And community outreach, so those that's already doing the work. When we started this, we were the first outreach team. Now we got 42 of them. Am I mad because they're doing outreach? No. Are they doing it exactly the same way we are? No. Should we be partnered with them? Yes, because how am I ask these young people not to gang bang and now for the gang bang with some outreach team? We need to work together. So having a strategic meeting with the individuals, if you can't talk to these people over here, that outreach probably can. So having a relationship with those teams is most definitely important. Recruit gang and group members. You know, I just walked into the Lag King meeting yesterday, knocked on the door. They let me in because I got a relationship with them. So when one of their guys go to act it up, I'm like, hey man, y'all need to sit down. You know, if you ain't got a relationship with the OGs, what are you doing? But you can't be scared doing the work, but you got to be smart doing it. Serve as the intervention teams, eyes, ears, hands, feet on the grounds, link clients and necessary resources, support their participation, resolve difficulty between clients and family otherwise. One of the things I know some of y'all are seeing is that you get these young people that's 14, 15 years old having guns and how you deal with juveniles. We got a relationship with the JJC, our juvenile justice. We're able to go in there with families and do custom notification just as we do with adults at JJC with the mother and the parents. So now while we got assistance to the JJC, which is providing mental health and all this type of stuff, we're coming in and we're happy doing a wraparound service with JJC with the entire family. Because they can change here, but they still got to go home. Be proactive in preventing shootings and retaliation, increase outreach presence in the hotspots. Trauma training, very important for your staff. Very important for yourself. I still, as a young girl that was 7 years old, that was shot, I'm still traumatized by it. First time I ever seen purple blood in my life. And I'm in the emergency room with the family, standing outside the door when they pronounced her dead, right? So that was hard to deal with, but we also have mental health counseling on our team to help give everybody counseling. We have a peer-to-peer exchange group where they meet every Wednesday where we provide real food, jambalaya, fried chicken, macaroni and cheese. It's AA for gang members. We have not had one incident in 7 years. It's a safe haven. So now they learn about ACEs. They learn how their brain function. They learn about conflict resolution. They learn, guess what? They find out this dude that they didn't like is just like him. We got the same issues. And guess what? I like him, right? Improve community relationship with law enforcement. That's our job as social service and outreach and the moral voice. Also holding them accountable. I hold our police department accountable. When they're right, they're right. When they're wrong, they're wrong. And and that's regardless what the organization is, whether it's the organization that I work for. If you're wrong, you're wrong. If we're not being intentional about helping these young men to understand what their life is and what they're dealing with, or our city municipality to understand that poverty is real, intentional, systematic, that causes some of this violence. Our school corporation not having good school corporations is causing some of this violence. When our young people walk out their door and all they see is deprivation, how can you have hope? We not only have to be the interrupter from the gun violence, but we have to be the advocate to get the changes in our community as well for the people that we see. Okay? Call-ins, custom notifications, scene support, victim support. We help with funerals. We help with, we started expungement clinics. That the beings of buses, justice supposed to balance is not just on the end of the defendant getting sentenced, but it's also on the end that if you have 5 or 7 years you have committed a crime, you should get expungement, get your life back. So we have been instrumental helping do that, training other cities. I got this last slide up here. I got one more. These are some of our partners. We based our partners on the barriers that our people have. Right, so we got quite a few partners. This is just a small list of them. These are some of the things that we provide. We got our city employees. If you want violence reduced, you got to have some skin in the game. Stole this from Detroit. Got a lead program. Put my people to work. Let them use working for the lead program for the city that they can put on their resume that can help me get them a job within the factory. And I'm not talking about bringing them in at $15 an hour. I want you to pay them what you pay everybody else. Guess what? They found out they some of the best workers that we have. So now they getting in the streets and lights. Now they in the parks. Now before the job openings go out to anybody else, they send it to us first. If we send our people in, they get hired, then they go out to the community. So that's the kind of relationships that we're building. Housing and support, mental health. Biggest thing is mental health. One thing we got to do is change the rules of what our people are thinking and how they living, right? Our young people think that they got to carry a gun, loyal to the gang, put in work, right? Those are the rules they live by. These are the rules that we have to give them. The most valuable possession I own is my own life. Thou should not lead friends to danger, right? Thou should be upright man, an upright woman, and take care of our children. When we start changing what they listening to and the rules that they living by to die by and give them rules to live by, we reduce violence in the community. I'm more than a check, the penitentiary, or the grave. Any questions? You know, I learned from a lot from Talib. I learned a lot from Paul Smith. I take ideas from everywhere. I'm just gonna tell you the truth. If I come to your city, I'm liable to steal an idea, Kimberly will tell you, and bring it back and say, the first 2 times, this was yours. The next time, look what Mr. Hunt did. All right. So you can, if you got any questions, I'm always available. Michael?
Thank you so much, Isaac. That was amazing and thorough. And thank you so much for spending the time with us and volunteering to share your insight with everyone. And Talib, again, I knew you were going to be fantastic, and you were. So thank you for your presentation. So folks, now you've seen kind of the model and the thinking, and then the experience, the insight that go into the support and outreach component of GVI. So we want to open up to questions from everybody. So feel free to raise your hand or throw the questions in the chat and I can read them out. And while you're thinking and formulating those questions, I just want to let Megan, my colleague, talk a tiny bit about the BGA link she threw in the chat.
Echoing the gratitude for your time, Isaac, sharing all of your experience with us. I learn something every time I listen to you, so thank you. Yes, so Talib was mentioning all of the wonderful funding opportunities that are available, and I linked the OJJDP or BJA or both solicitation into the chat. So that's open right now, and you can see they break down, you know, what type of organization is eligible. Anyone here, I think the places you work for would be eligible in one of the categories. You know, how many awards they're giving, how high the awards will be, and it's open now. I think you have about a month to work on that. We have a little bit of experience with the federal grant application process. So if we can be a resource at all, if this is something that's new to you, don't hesitate to reach out to Michael, to me, to Talib, and we'd be happy to, you know, to chat and help you wade through all of that. And if there's any other, you know, if you have any other questions about the organizations that Talib mentioned that are providing funding around violence intervention, we could also provide that. So let us know.
Thank you, Megan. And we could send that link around with a follow-up email next week with a recording of the session and some other materials NNSC actually also has a white paper specifically on support and outreach and how it fits into GVI that covers a lot of the material we discussed today. So we'll send that around to everybody too. So you have kind of the written prose version of the presentation that Talib was going over today. But with 10 or so minutes left, so if any folks have questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, raise your hand, just speak up. We have Talib and Isaac here for another 10 minutes. A couple of our other NNSC colleagues are online. So if you have any questions about the presentation specifically, or things that were in them that you want to know about support and outreach and how it fits in to the strategy as we've been discussing, just feel free. And hopefully we can take a crack at it.
I'm gonna put my contact information in the thing just in case anybody want to email me and want to talk. I'm available.
Thank you, Isaac.
Y'all may tell me none of y'all got no questions? Maurice, I know you got a question, Maurice. Mr. Washington.
Yeah, I got a question. I might as well ask it here. How often do you run across individuals that need to be relocated or have interest of, being relocated?
We run across that quite a bit. One of the things that we've been working on is getting a safe house. And trying in our general area where we got Kalamazoo, we got Chicago, we got Gary. If we can, I can send people to Chicago because my buddy Charles Perry. But he need to be able to send people to me as well, keep them safe. So we're developing a safe house in the city. So that way we can do a triangle between Detroit, Michigan, and stuff like that to share, to keep people safe and be able to move them around and keep them alive.
Okay, because I recently brought something to the attention of another meeting I had. I can just ask this directly to anybody on here. Like I said, we're just getting started out here in Hopewell, Virginia, and it's something that came up a couple of times. But I work for like our organization is based on recovery housing. So I'm interested to see how many people on this call maybe are in close contact with a recovery organization in there that is, specifically either VAR certified or maybe not VAR, National Association of Recovery Residents certified, and possibly either or. But maybe if an incident comes up that someone may be interested in doing that, so sort of like may not be as much as a safe house, but if we could have different organizations in different cities that we could work together with and send somebody to recovery house.
If I could just jump in a bit, and anyone who can directly speak to the recovery house question, please feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat. But I did just want to speak to the relocation piece. A lot of GVI sites have to deal with this question, and I want to point out Pastor Garland Scott down in Jacksonville has got Safe Passage, where he's got a network of folks that have worked with other sites around the country and as Isaac said, right, it's reciprocity in relationships, right? If you take somebody, if I send you someone, you got to take someone. Also, there's a reason why everyone to put their name and agency and location in the chat, because you may find that someone that you might be working with is like, I got to get out the city. You're like, I'm gonna wait to send you. Say, well, I got people in Houston. Can you get me to Houston? And you're like, wait, I was just at that GVI workshop and someone is someplace in Houston. Or, oh, I remember Isaac said he was over in South Bend, and this person I'm working with says that they need to get over to Indiana. Maybe I can hit up Isaac. Or someone I'm working with said they got people in Virginia. Maybe I'll get them over to Maurice. So, this part of this workshop here, even being here, and is utilizing your resources. And also, and maybe you can speak to this as well, Isaac, when doing relocation, you want to have your support and outreach folk on board, but also sometimes it may depend on, you may need your law enforcement partners on board as well, because there may be certain legal issues that need to be resolved when people are going across jurisdiction lines. You know, you don't want you don't want to send someone someplace else, and the police department there is looking at them like, well, who's this person? You know what I mean? Like, you want people, you know, you want just how you want your whole team to be together. You want wherever you're sending someone, their whole team to be together. So you're not just sending them into a situation where they're not going to be successful.
Very well said, Talib. I don't need to add on.
Mhm.
Thank you both. Reverend Carter, I see your hand is up. I don't know if it's a question or something to add on, but feel free to.
No, I'm actually at the very bottom of this totem pole and trying to learn how to do this work. I am inspired by what Brother Hunt has shared with us. And I guess my question has to do with, since we are brand new, we haven't really implemented yet, how critical or how important is it that some of your key people be local people when you're developing your outreach team? Is it possible to have somebody from somewhere else come in and help kind of guide that? Or does it need to be somebody from around here who's been trained to do that? I'm just wondering.
I like to stay local. So I've not only did I start GVI, do the social services in South Bend, I was able to do it in Gary, Indiana, right? So in Gary here, I'm coming an hour and a half away. I got family there, but I can't be the face of the strategy, right? I had to find somebody in the community that could be the face of the strategy that had credibility. So I had to go to the community, have conversations with them, right? So that the community would pick the person. I didn't pick them. So now they would back them. But one thing I did not say, and I want to make sure I emphasize this, you got to have your pastors involved. Your pastor, your clergy, the imams and all that has to be involved. And I know Talib hit on it, but don't do the mistake I did. Trying to make the pastors do something that's out of their anointing.
Right.
Yeah. And then they're blasting. I'm telling you, I was blasting my pastor. I don't see y'all come in on Tuesdays and Sundays with y'all lecture shorts, right? And I don't see you in the neighborhood, right? And Bishop Harris told me in Detroit, he said, you didn't give them their anointing. So who are you to chastise them about their anointing?
Mhm.
He said, utilize them where they at.
Yeah.
And it hit me. If you got food pantry, I'm gonna use you for food pantry. I got a pastor, all he want to do is be on the news. Guess what I do for it? Every time I shoot, come on out here, right? So
We got plenty of those.
Yep. So I utilize them where they're at, and then I'm able to have quarterly breakfast with them, and we have conversations, and they engaged in the strategy now because I'm not beating them with whip.
Yeah. It would be great to hang out with a counterpart who does kind of what we're doing to kind of learn their approach to this, because I feel so green. Not that I'm necessarily going to be the boots on the ground here. I kind of help direct traffic one way or the other, but it still would be good to kind of understand from a grassroots perspective kind of what happened, so I can help. You know, I'm getting toward retirement, but I can certainly help direct some of the younger fellows who has a little more energy and so forth to do that if I kind of understood that. So thank you.
Come on down to South Bend,
helpful.
Pastor. Come on down to South Bend. We'll show you how to do it.
All right.
Also, just want to add one quick thing is there's a question that I'm gonna date myself, but I think it's an evergreen question that you may hear on the streets. And it's a question that if it comes up, you gotta be prepared for this. The question is, whose man's is this? And it's a gender neutral question, but it goes to the point that Reverend Carter raised. Whose man's is this? So if you show up someplace, I don't care if you show up in the streets, I don't care if it's the police, I don't care if it's the service provider, I don't care if it's the pastor, I don't care if it's the city agency person, I don't care if it's the mayor. If they show up, people say, whose man's is this? Right? If nobody knows you, you got no credibility. If you have no relationship, nothing you're gonna do is gonna work. And that it goes for no matter who that you are working with, whether it's your law enforcement partners, your service and support and outreach partners, your community moral voice partners, your own family, right? You show up at the cookout, people be like, whose man's is this? Nobody knows, right? So that has to be a question you have to be able to address.
Hey, Talib, let me add this on with you. You also got to have somebody that look like the people that serve you.
Speak on that one.
See,
Speak on that one.
I'm in the Latino community. I need some Latino representation.
Yep.
But because I built a relationship with the Latino community, when they walk through Goodwill's door, they should see Latino representation. The people that they coming into their door should be somebody that look like them that can relate with them. We intentionally got therapists that look like the people we serve them. Because guess what? They culturally aware and they culturally understand.
Right.
And guess what? Now they taking services.
Right.
Right.
And so like some places you may have a West African immigrant population, right? That might be predominantly Muslim. And if you send a Black Baptist preacher,
You in trouble.
whose man's is this, right? Nobody knows, right? That doesn't, you can't just say, oh, well, they're a pastor. And you know what I mean? Like you gotta be like to Isaac's point. I mean, some of the cities we look at, Minneapolis, they have native, they have folks from East Africa, from Somalia, they got folks that are Native American. The folks, you got people down in Albuquerque in New Mexico, right? You've got different Native folks and Chicano folks, right? You know what I mean? So to Isaac's point, you gotta, and to Reverend Carter's point, you really gotta be representative of the people that you're working with. It goes back to that credible messenger and having that credibility.
The other point was, COVID was bad. Everybody, focused on all of that crisis. But one of the benefits that COVID taught us was how to collaborate. Irregardless of those differences, we had to cooperate with all of those different communities, the immigrant community, the Latino community, our community, the African-American community. We had to work with everybody. And so I think, Brother Hunt, you shared that as well, that we've got to learn how to collaborate. It don't have to always be about us. We're trying to help community, and community includes everybody who's in it. So this was great.
Can I get, and I know I'm taking over, Michael, but real quick, I got Michael Winston, the director of the Save Our Rich team, who heads up our Save Our Rich team. Mike, can you just talk about the pop-outs and the things that you're doing with the pop-outs? Real quick.
I know you put me on the spot. Yeah, listen, when it comes to that outreach, it's one thing you want to be able to activate the community, get to the people, but then you have to engage the community. So what we do is we get information weekly that tells us the focus areas, days and times where things are most likely to occur. And we simply take our tent, we go and we post up, we fire up the grill. These things are on short notice. They're not heavily marketed. We go on our social media page and say, hey, we'll be in this area, bam, until food runs out, and we engage the people there. We feed, we sit, we turn the music on just to be present, bam, so they can get to know you, so they can feel a level of comfort. And it's important to be able to do that and to make sure that you make the rounds throughout the city. Okay, we hear about streets that are identified, like when you hear about South Bend, you'll always hear about Huey Street. And listen, it's tough on Huey Street, but there are other streets in South Bend where families live. So make sure you spread it out, make sure you're being fair about it. And yeah, that's the purpose of the pop-outs. But also, Isaac, Mr. Carson, you had a question about youth. I'll put my email here, and we're doing some great work with youth. So much so that we just had some shooting incidents in the city that involved kids in school. The local police department sent every teenager attached to the situation to us to receive services, and we got them all linked through WIOA, through the Work Innovative program for employment or to learn a skilled trade. So I'll share my information.
Thank you so much. And I know we're over time, so I'm just going to close this out quickly. But I wanted to thank our presenters again today and everyone else who shared their insight for another fantastic session. And all right. So our next session will be on June 1st, and we'll talk about another component that was actually brought up in both presentations today, which is the community moral voice and how they fit into the GVI strategy and how to select the proper people for that who have the most impact with the community. So we'll cover kind of similar themes as this session and the direct communication session, but really a deep dive into that role specifically in that component of the strategy. And then future sessions will include more deep dives on the other components of GVI, including police legitimacy and managing resources and partnerships. And then we're also going to have a special presentation later in the year on the intimate partner violence intervention, or IPVI. So look forward to that this fall. As always, you could reach us at GVI Workshop at nnscommunities.org or our website, nnscommunities.org/GVI Workshop. Feel free to email me with any questions. I know folks are looking for potential connections to other sites, and I know we try to put everyone's email in the chat, but in case you missed something and are looking for a partner that we might be able to connect you with, just let me know. Feel free to share that information with anybody else who wants to attend the next session. The recording will go up on the website. We'll send it out to all of you along with the slide decks and the white paper I talked about. And we look forward to seeing you at the next session. Thank you for attending. Thank you for the presenters, and hope everyone has a great day. Thank you so much.